mysteries abound around the world, from strange lights in the night sky to ghostly apparitions passing from one realm to the next. From the great pyramids of Egypt to what lies beneath the depths of Loch Ness. From Bigfoot to Atlantis, they are all mysteries waiting to be solved. Join Laurie Phillips, Lauren Smith, Graz, and Billy Simmons as they search for the truth on Night Callers Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Night Callers Bigfoot Radio. It's July 2nd, 2015. We're here with the whole crew tonight. How are y'all doing?
Snicker, 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 snicker.
I muted myself.
Snicker.
Oh, it's going to be one of those
nights. We're not
nights.
going to discuss what we were discussing previously. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Lauren muted herself.
Lauren.
Okay.
Lauren. She must be losing it. She's so easy.
I guess so.
Stop muting me.
I didn't touch it. I didn't touch it.
Oh, my gosh. If y'all don't want to hear from me, let me know.
I'm going to tell you, this whole studio has been acting crazy. Did you hear that intro? What it was doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's popping in and out a little bit. I thought I was moving my headset around.
That was a little bit. Yeah. No, I don't know. Oh, Lord, I'm going to pray over this show. Anyway, everybody is here, and we're going to have a great show tonight. We have a wonderful guest that we're going to get to in a minute. Does anyone have anything new, Sasquatchy to tell?
No, but you do, so how about you go ahead?
Yeah. Okay, well, this happened like about 3 weeks ago. And my niece had come down from Fort Worth, and she come and we were sitting out on the porch. It was in the middle of the afternoon. And, of course, you know, let me describe the way the porch is. It's a wooden porch, and it faces out the yard, and it goes down a hill. The yard goes down a hill into a wooded area, and there's a pond down at the bottom. Well, it's still, you know, pretty grown up back there, but you can see the back of the pond. And so anyway, she said that she saw something large and black moving very quickly across the back of that pond. And, of course, I was right there. I didn't hear anything or see anything. I wasn't looking when she was looking. So I don't know if she saw a shadow of a big bird flying over or what she saw exactly. But I just thought it was interesting, and I wanted to share it.
It has to be a pretty big bird, I feel like.
Yeah, you know, but those birds can cast a pretty good shadow. They really can. But and her being a city girl, but although she is outdoorsy, you know, they do camp a lot and stuff like that, so I can't totally discredit what she saw, but it really made me curious. Mm-hmm. And I certainly did.
Have you ever seen large, dark Bigfoot out there? Black?
No, but I've seen them. I have seen them in the next county over.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I've ever seen where I live is the two that the one that I've seen twice. It was the same one. So I'm most sure there are black ones around. I just have not seen one yet. So.
Well, maybe we'll get her on to, you know, tell her side of that. Get some more details.
Yeah.
Anyone else have anything? Okay, then.
No.
Well,
we're doing so well. Well, I'm looking at a new spot. Last weekend was gated. It's on my Facebook. Last weekend it was gated. The new road I went out to. Go figure, gated. So I'm going to look for another place tomorrow or Saturday. Get out of the house.
Okay.
That's about it. I'm still trying.
Well, at least you're trying, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hi, remember, Lauren, tell them about the witness encounter thing, and if
Thanks, Mom. You wanna come comb my hair while you're at it?
No.
I could use some mommy pampering. Okay. So we mentioned a couple shows ago, heck, maybe even last show. I wasn't here mentally for that one. That we are starting to take witness calls again. We've been doing our Bigfoot researcher theme for a while now, and we've been getting some requests for witness interviews. So we're going to be taking encounters from witnesses. You can email us at nightcallers_BTR@yahoo.com, or you can message us on Facebook if you would like to tell us your encounter, and we can give you a call back and discuss it with you, or however you would like to do it. But we are interested in hearing from you. Tonight we have Don Neal on from Kentucky, and I will let Graz tell you all about him.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Night Callers Bigfoot Radio presents Don Neal of Kentucky. Don became interested in the Bigfoot phenomenon after seeing the famous Patterson-Gimlim film back in 1968. As a traveling evangelist for almost 24 years, Don visited many states and met various different people who in their talks would mention having experiences and telling stories of encounters with a strange, tall, hairy creature. In time, Don began to see that people from all backgrounds, races, social standings, and financial standings had very similar stories to tell. From the American Indians on the reservations in Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Arizona, to loggers in upstate New York, to park rangers in the Ocala National Forest in Florida, to hunters and outdoorsmen in Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, Missouri, and many other states. All had very similar stories of an upright, bipedal, hair-covered, human-looking creature standing over 7 feet tall in most cases. All of these people could not be wrong. All of these people telling almost the same exact story, describing the same exact creature, even though most of them did not know each other or knew each other's stories. Convinced Mr. Neal that there was something out there. Mr. Neal has spoken to many eyewitnesses of all ages and taken reports of their encounters. He has been on Bigfoot expeditions with the BFRO, the KBRO, and other Bigfoot groups. He has had many close encounters while on these expeditions, finding footprints, scat, and hair. He has heard their howls, screams, whoops, moans, and even their whistling. He has found tree snaps, wood structures, and even had a tree pushed down very close to him in the total darkness of a late night in the middle of a dense forested area where there were no other humans close by, and heard it run off afterward. Join us tonight as we talk Bigfoot with Don Neal and review his audio from the field. Thank you very much.
Good job, Graz. Don, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hey there. It's good to hear from you.
Glad to be here. I was enjoying his intro. I need to hire him.
We'll run into you.
All right. I need a good front man.
Oh, my gosh. All right. Well, we are really glad to have you here.
I'm non-union.
We'll run him cheap.
Real cheap.
I didn't say cheap.
Tapioca pudding.
Shuffleboard on weekends.
So, Don, we're really glad to have you here tonight. So we're just going to jump right in. We ask our usual question. It says you became interested in this topic after seeing the famous Patterson-Gimlim film. Can you tell us about that? Tell us kind of what you were doing and where it was from there.
Yes, ma'am. First of all, thank you for having me on. It is absolutely my pleasure and honor to be on your show. I like to tell people that I got into Bigfooting. It was a two-part, it was 2 phases. And the first was when I was about 13 years old and watching the news one day. My father was watching, I'm sure I wasn't. And they came across with the breaking news of the Patterson-Gimlim film. And as a young man, that really stood out to me. Probably one of the few times I stopped and actually watched the news. And that just made an imprint, I always say, in my psyche and in my mind. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. And so that started my interest in it. Then I'm a typical teenager going about my business. At the age of 17, I became a minister, and today I'm 60 years old. I've been doing this for 43 years. I'm a licensed and ordained minister, and I've traveled all over the United States in these years and founded churches. But in 1974, I was at a ministers' convention. And by the way, y'all just have to tell me when to stop. You'll have to put the plunger on me, because when I get going, I get wound up.
No,
I was at a ministers' convention in Louisville, Kentucky, about 300 ministers, and we were at a big dinner one day, just having dinner. And I got to tell you about this man first. I got to paint the picture. There was a minister there that was from the Oregon and Wyoming area. He was a modern day cowboy. The guy was the most unlike any other preacher in the room. We had our suits and ties on and everything, which was mandatory at the time, and he wore his buckskins and his jeans and his cowboy boots, and he was a missionary to the Indian tribes. He married an Indian squaw, he called her, Indian woman, and he was just an old modern cowboy. He would leave his home on Mondays with his pack horse and mules and go up into the mountains and stay literally all week. He would come in on the weekends and bring in the meat and the hides that he would sell. He would preach to the Indians on Sunday and be with his wife and literally go back. I mean, this guy was just, they could make a film about this man. But this plays into the picture. This guy was somebody that just was a colorful character and just as plain down to earth. He looked like his face was cut out of stone and leather, a Clint Eastwood type looking guy. And, he just was out of place, but I loved him, everything about him. This night we were sitting at his table, and we were talking about different things in ministry and we were just asking him about, what's some of the latest things you've been involved in, or what's some of the weirdest things. We're wanting a good grizzly bear story or a good moose kill story, because he always had something, he had done and tracked something, for miles. And he said, well, guys, funny you should ask. I just had the weirdest experience in my life. Well, I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. I'm a young man. I'm 20 years old at that time. I'm ready to hear the story, And he says he was up in the mountains in a secluded area. He hadn't seen a human there in weeks that he had been hunting this area. And he had found a large rock ledge about 300 feet high off the ground of the surrounding meadows. And he had his pack horses up on top, and he would climb down these rocks and sit there for hours at a time and watch this meadow, open fields, 300 or 400 yards wide and long. And it was a pot shot. He was a professional marksman, an expert shooter. And he was just really, racking up. He just got several animals and spent all night cleaning their hides and sleeping in his camp. And anyway, he was sitting there one day, got warm, said he was kind of napping off. And yes, I can't remember things that happened to me last week, but I'll never forget this man's story from about 1974. That's how much it impacted me. And he said he was sitting there in the sun and just kind of taking it easy, and his eye caught something, his peripheral vision come out into the field about 300 or 400 yards out. And so he thought, well, here's another creature. And he said, as soon as I looked, my mind began to play tricks on me. He said, because I tried my best to make it something that was on four legs, and it wasn't. It was upright. He said, I looked, and it was a dark black color. It stood out, and he said it was taking long strides. And he said, my mind, I knew what I was seeing, but my mind couldn't catch up with what was walking across the field. He said it began to stop, and it reached down and pull up certain weeds by the roots, and it was chewing on the roots. So then he takes his scope. You got to understand, this man can pick off things 400 or 500 yards with ease. I mean, shooting was nothing to this man. And he put his scope up on this creature, and he thought, whatever it is, I'm about to kill it. And as it went up to its face, he said, I looked into the most human-looking face on a 7-foot-tall, hair-covered bipedal creature that looked everything like a gorilla, but its face was literally a human being. He said, I knew at that moment to let my finger off the trigger. I could not kill this thing. It looked so human. Well, I'm just about to fall off my seat. That's it. I'm gone. Because this guy's telling it, and it's the truth. This guy's telling this room full of ministers, this table full of ministers, his compadres, he's telling us this story. Then he said, if you think that's strange, you'll never believe what happened next. Well, my God, what can be stranger than you're seeing a Bigfoot? You're seeing a 7-foot creature. And he said, I was hidden in those rocks, and I had already purposely made sure that, now this is right out of a Lewis Moore book, that when he raised his gun, he fixed himself so that the sun would not glint off of his scope, because animals can even detect that, and cautious animals will move at a glint. I don't know that they know it's a gun, but they know it's something unusual, and they'll run at a glint off of the scope. I never thought of that. But he said, I raised that scope and looked at the creature, and at 400 yards away and 300 feet elevation above him, this creature stopped and sniffed the air and turned and looked into those rocks. And he said he didn't just look at the rocks, he looked straight at me, right into my scope. He knew I was there, and he said, that's impossible. There's no way it could have known I was there. I was immovable, I was camouflaged. And he said the creature just took off at a fast pace and walked the remainder of the field and walked away. And I said, what did you see? What do you call what you saw? He said, I absolutely saw a Bigfoot. I have no doubt. And that ruined it. In 1974, I was absolutely ruined and believed that there is a creature called Bigfoot. So after that, as I was on my travels across the United States, and I wouldn't go asking about Bigfoot, I'm an evangelist, but we would talk, out of church or during the days, and I loved to ask the American Indians about strange things that they had experienced, and we'd get into the story. Many of the Indian chiefs would tell me about the tall man of the mountain or the hairy man of the woods, and it just became a habit of mine. And when I was at different places, I said, look, you may think I'm a nut, but have you ever experienced anything unusual? Have you ever had, I wouldn't even lead into Bigfoot, and I would begin, as he explained at the beginning. I've heard stories from 36 different states, from the richest people to the poorest people, from the country Joe to the very elite park rangers and small airplane pilots and railroad engineers, conductors, and different and police officers and good Christian people that, I'd be on Christianity with people that wouldn't say shoot or darn. They think they're going to hell. I mean, they're not going to certainly tell you a lie. It's that important to them, and they tell you the stories of what they've seen. And so I'll try to cut this off. So a few years ago, I believe 2006 or 7, I started being involved with a BFRO that has the show Finding Bigfoot, and they're a great group, and I went to 3 or 4 of their expeditions and knew then that for my hobby, for my sideline, I'm a full-time minister, but I wanted to do this. This is what I wanted to do. And but they go all over the United States, and I'm confined to my church and to home gladly. And so I found a group called the KBRO, that's the Kentucky Bigfoot Research Organization, and they deal only in the state of Kentucky. And I just befriended them and started going out on them with expeditions and told them my interest in being a researcher with them, and they picked me up and allowed me that great opportunity. Charlie Raymond is the head of the KBRO, and he gave me the opportunity to take the counties in my part of Kentucky, in western Kentucky, and I've been doing it full-time ever since then, and it keeps me busy. I've been out 3 times this week on expeditions, doing research, doing follow-ups on some great reports, and for some reason, usually fall and winter time, and early spring are when Bigfoot really seem to move the most, but during this summer, we're nonstop. I'm getting stories from several counties around me that's keeping me going all the time. But anyway, that's how I got started. Some old cowboy and a news clip from 1967. I'm sorry, I told you I talked a lot.
That's all right. I love it.
I do too.
Well, I love a guest that'll tell me everything, not make me pull it out of them with a pair of pliers.
Oh, no, I'm here to tell about it because I'm excited about it. And what makes me a little, I think, different, not the only one, but again, I'm a full-time licensed and ordained minister. I now pastor and founder of my own religious group, Incorporated, and it's a busy job. And here I am, and I tell everybody in the daytime I'm mild mannered Clark Kent pastor. At nighttime I'm a Bigfoot hunter, and I also am a tornado chaser and weather spotter from National Weather Service and our local TV station. So that's my crazy things. That's what I do to get my wild side out. So in the daytime I stay calm preacher. But it's different to be a pastor and a minister and be out hunting Bigfoot. And on some sides I get the funny looks and the people say, well, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard it. But, on the other side, I also get witnesses to open up to me quicker and better. Right. People that have told me no when they found out I was a local minister. I get permission from landowners after they find out I'm a local minister. And I tell them, I've been doing this 43 years. Then they know I'm not some fly-by-night kook, And I gain people's trust with that, and it's gave me a lot of opportunities being a minister and Bigfooting. But it is an odd mix, I guarantee you.
That's all right. You sound like a well-rounded young man.
Young man, thank you. I'll send you a card.
But I can see how how being a minister would help you a lot. It's kind of an advantage over normal people who have normal day jobs and try to go out and interview. And more
than I thought it would. I'm a people person, and I've grown accustomed to reading people. Now, some of that I sometimes may call it spiritual, but I've been around people, and I'm used to people and reading people and knowing people. I don't want to make you think I'm crazy, but I can pretty well speak to a person. I feel that, I can bond with them, and I can read people. I don't know how else to call it. That in Kentucky we say read people, and I can read people fairly well. And to be honest with you, in one-on-one, face-to-face conversations, I can pretty well read a person out if they're lying or being as truthful as they can. I don't mean everybody. I don't scrutinize everybody I meet. But in a real intense conversation, I've been blessed through the years and meeting so many different people that I get a read on people. And it really helps when you're conducting a investigation with the witness. And, that we run into that. Look, in the Bigfoot world, we run into some people that were just excited. Some people want to see something bad enough. I'd like to say with the KBRO, they're a professional group. And if you allow me sometime during the program, I'd like to give you their website and like for people, especially around Kentucky, could go there. But the KBRO is a scientific group, and we're into this to research that if we can discover the creature, prove what it is. We are a no-kill group, and we would like to get laws passed that would protect the species and cause them to be an endangered species and be protected. So that's the reason we're into this. But at the KBRO, we're taught if you go out to a investigation, if it can be anything else, if it can be explained to be anything else, then that's what it is. We're not everything's a Bigfoot. And many of our trips to speak to witnesses, it was a bear, or it was a misidentification, or the person was just kind of excited, and you don't say, hey, you're lying. You just say, well, thank you for your time. But there's certain red flags that can come up. And I find that being a minister and talking to people, that helps to walk away. You're always kind to the witness, but you go back to the, to the researchers and say, I don't believe this will hold together. So we're in it to find some real information about Bigfoot and to avoid the lies, the hoaxes, and the misrepresentations.
Definitely. I like that y'all are no-kill and about the law being passed to protect them.
Yes.
I'm kind of worried about what's going to have to happen to prove they exist and then to protect them. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I'm gonna kind of contradict myself. Look, we are a no-kill group. I'm a licensed firearms carrier, concealed license. I've been trained in weapons use, and when I'm in the woods, I carry a weapon at all times. I have for 30 years, and I try to tell people I don't carry it for a Sasquatch. I don't think it would do any good anyway. I carry it because now in Kentucky we've got mountain lions, though the game wardens, I talked to them and they deny it, but we've got them. We've got trail cam pictures of mountain lions in Kentucky. We absolutely have bears. Now in this part of Kentucky, they were just in eastern Kentucky. They've moved westward. And for creatures like that, and then I've been out Bigfooting and run across marijuana patch. I was out 3 years ago and came upon a meth lab. And I carry a gun for protection, from many other things, but not a Sasquatch. But to be completely honest, and this just makes some people makes their hair curl, it's going to take a body. Before this can ever be proven, maybe run over by a car, someone may shoot and kill one. One may die of old age, but if that was possible, we'd find them already, and that's a whole other line of questioning. But it's going to take a body, and we're a no-kill group. We're not going to kill one, but yet we know it's going to take a body because we always thought that the pinnacle would be to get DNA evidence. And we got DNA evidence, Melba Ketchum and the Erickson study in Kentucky. I'm a firm believer in that. Some people are, some people aren't. I have met people that were in that investigation. I saw the videos back in 2007, 2008 before they were released to very many people at all. I knew the people involved in it, and that was a serious study. And we got the DNA evidence, enough DNA evidence to prove somebody guilty of murder in a court of law. But when the scientific community received it, and because of the subject it was about, it was absolutely drummed out and was not accepted. It's going to take a body. I hate to say that, but that's what it's going to take.
I agree. If, and even then, if And I know I sound all conspiracy theorist, but even, that's if the government allows that to,
Yes. Well, that's always in the back of our minds. Some people think they do know. Some people believe the government do know already about them, and I've heard stories. I'm open-minded to all of it. If you're going to be open-minded to believe in Bigfoot, you better be open-minded about many other things. And, and I like to tell people, I don't know what direction you want this conversation to go, but, there's as many different beliefs in this community in Bigfooting as there is religions. When I'm dealing in religion and Christianity, there's God's not in all the different kind of churches and religions that's out there. God allows man to try to find his way, but he's not into all that. He's one God. He wants one church. But anyway, I've heard of the alien conspiracy theory with Bigfoots and time travelers and interdimensional and descendants of Cain and so forth and so forth. And I'd like to just open that up and tell you. People ask me, okay, Don, what is a Bigfoot? And my honest answer is to you, I don't know. I don't know what it is. When I started out into this field, I was thinking it was an as yet undiscovered North American bipedal ape. Probably a descendant of Gigantopithecus, and was pretty sure of that. And as I began to delve into it closer, and we obtained evidence, and I worked with other researchers, and especially the witnesses, and I hope during this program, that's my strong point I want to get across, the witnesses. I began to be convinced that we were not dealing with any type of a dumb gorilla-type animal. It becomes even more human-like with every witness I talk to. Expressions, moods, reactions. I've changed my mind to this is a very intelligent, unknown creature. This creature is smarter than us. Now, not technology. He couldn't run an iPhone or an iPad. But in the woods and living off the land and staying hidden, he is smarter than the best Green Beret, the best Navy SEAL out in the woods. He has no comparison. I saw a funny thing on Facebook. He's the hide-and-seek champion of the world. These creatures are extremely smart. And the question of what about finding the dead bodies, we believe they bury their dead without a shadow of a doubt. They are absolutely keen on making that one of their main points. They do their best not to leave tracks and certainly not to leave a body.
Now, a friend of mine and I were talking about that last night, about what kind of wisdom they have as compared to us. Now, if you take their brain size, if they have a comparable brain size, relative, what kind of, their brain would be set up different than ours is. Ours is technology-based. We've all technology-based.
Exactly.
Theirs is working within nature itself, so their brain is concentrated on nature. Their wisdom is within that. But their intelligence applies that wisdom to that situation. They probably, I don't know if you agree with this, but they probably have their own culture within their life, with their family.
I believe that's absolutely possible, yes.
Yeah. And it's possible that they have their own kind of use technology. So it's all relative. I mean, humans have theirs, Bigfoot would have theirs, and apes and other apes and whatever would have theirs, but the apes don't have the kind of intelligence that a Bigfoot has, which is comparable to ours, but being used in a different way.
Right, exactly. And I think the smartest thing about them is they have lived so long and went undetected by man. That's a great feat in itself. And as population keeps growing, now I do believe that's why we're seeing more Bigfoot. I believe there's more Bigfoot stories. There's more people in the field of Bigfooting than ever before in history of time in Bigfooting. Wasn't too many years ago, there were 3 or 4 big names in Bigfooting, and they're well established, and they're the godfathers of Bigfooting. Today, there are more groups than ever before, more TV shows, more exposure. I believe that's why we're getting more reports than ever before. People used to be scared to share their story, afraid of ridicule. You didn't mention that you were the laughingstock, and now it's on TV. I mean, I think the show Finding Bigfoot, which a lot of researchers don't like, I love it. It's brought me more witnesses. It's opened up more doors. But I believe we're entering a day where there's more people in the woods, and we're going to see more stories, and more eyewitnesses are coming forth. Now, I'm getting a lot of stories here lately from 25, 35, 40 years ago. But the people have held on to these stories and are just now willing to come out and tell about it. And as one witness told me just recently, he would not dare have shared his story 20 years ago. He had a name to uphold. He had a business to run. He would never have shared it. But now he felt that he could, and he did. An outstanding report, by the way. So things are getting red hot.
Multiply that by thousands going back 200 or 300 years.
Exactly.
That people have always known that they were there, but they just shut up and dealt with it. That's the way
Right.
a lot of the farmers have been dealing with it all over this country. They plow the land, they flatten it, they plow it, they get their system set up, but they have cut into a Bigfoot's territory, so they're going to be dealing with it. And you multiply that over the last couple of hundred years times several thousand, that people haven't even talked about it. But like you said, the word is getting out, and people are talking about it now.
Right. And, you know, with all the witnesses, and I tell you, I did have a count, and I'm sorry, I'm looking on my desk. I've got all my paperwork laid out and been preparing to try to be a good guest on your show, but I've lost that. Some report I read said that it is estimated that only one in every 10 people that see a Bigfoot come forth as a witness. I've seen where another Bigfoot research group said it was more like 1 in 20. So if we're getting all these hundreds and hundreds, and the BFRO's getting thousands of reports now coming in, more, I mean, each year it grows exponentially greater than the year before, and this is only 1 in 10 or 1 in 20 witnesses. And I've learned that just 2 weeks ago, if I may share, 2 weeks ago I got a call from a gentleman, shook up, and he'd been fishing in a local stripper pit in one of the strip mines. This is Kentucky's a strip mine area. That's where they come in, and instead of digging underground mines going after the coal, they dig the top of the land off. They scrape the land off down to the coal vein, the coal seam. And so when they leave in the state of Kentucky, the law is they must sow grass, plant trees, and the big pits they dig is filled with water. So it makes a great wildlife refuge. We've got Peabody Mines near me is 97,000 acres of wildlands and lakes, probably 100 different lakes that you can fish in. It's a sportsman's paradise. But this man was fishing in one of the local stripper pits. You'd be surprised how many shows I've been on. People say, "What's a strip pit? Do you go strip down?" And no, it's a stripper pit. And he and his friend are fishing. They just put their boat in the water, and they look over on the bank, and his friend said, "Do you see what I see?" And this large, tall, blonde-colored Bigfoot stands up, about 7 foot tall, and takes off walking away into the woods. And the guys are just stunned. They're numb. They don't know what to say. And they're seeing it, but they don't believe it. So the man really wrestles in his mind what to do, and he finds our website. He looks up Bigfoot in Kentucky, and thank God it takes him to our website. So I go into his home, and I speak to him. And so while we're talking, he's reluctant. You know, you're kind with the witness, and you're taking your time. And I said, "Look, I believe you. Before you even say anything, I'm not going to laugh at you. I'm not going to ridicule. I believe you. I wouldn't be here." And so he gets loose, and he starts talking, and his partner says, "Don't even ask him to speak to me." So here's proof. One witness will talk. The other one said, "Don't even ask him to talk to me. I'm not telling what we saw." And so the guy shares the story. Well, what he does, his wife says, "Well, tell him what happened, 6 months ago." Well, they were at another lake in the area, and they were unloading their boat, and something loud and big come crashing through the woods. They could hear the footsteps, thump, 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 and it let out this screaming yell. And so they throw the boat back up in the back of their truck and peel out of there and take off. So I said, "You didn't even think about that being related?" They said, "No, not at all. But now, it makes sense." So then the woman says, "I got a sister that needs to talk to you. She's been having incidents at her home for 10 years, and just recently she saw a baby Bigfoot run out in front of her car." Well, by now I'm foaming at the mouth. I mean, are you kidding me? So I went and visited this 58-year-old Kentucky lady. Her husband died of cancer. She's lived in this house for 37 years. I mean, a down-home Kentucky, this woman is just down to earth and as country as cornbread and sweet as you can find. And she has no reason to tell me any stories. She has no reason to welcome me into her home. My wife and I go and see her. And at first, again, she's reluctant. She said, "Well, since my sister told you." But I'm showing you how only 1 in 10 witnesses, but you just got to pull. It's like pulling teeth. You got to get them to come out. And got the greatest report I guess I've ever got. This lady was coming home in Ohio County, Kentucky, the county adjacent to where I live now. She was 10 o'clock at night. She saw a dark figure standing in the road. She locks her doors. She's driving by herself. She's a single woman. She comes up on it and thinks it's a man dressed in black. That's the first thing your mind would go to. No reason why it should be a man dressed in black, but that's what you think. And she said as soon as she got within 12 feet, she didn't have to lock up her brace, but she stopped pretty quickly. And within 12 feet in her headlights stands a 4-foot-tall creature covered in hair, looking straight at her, straight into her eyes. And she explained it had large lips. It had a very large hooded nose, just like a human, that covered a big part of its face. But the most amazing thing to her was its great big eyes. And she said, this thing, I felt sorry for it. Well, I'm about to drop my pen. Well, I've heard a lot of things. Feel sorry for it. You're not scared to death. She said, I could tell it was an adolescent or a child. I could tell it was lost or scared. She said it didn't know which way to go or what to do. She said, my heart went out to it. It was terrified. And the look in those eyes was just like a child that was scared to death. Now, I've never had that. I've never had that. I've had a lot of reports. And this woman, and then all of a sudden she kicked back into reality and said, wait a minute, this thing might have a mama or daddy around here. I got to do something. And so as she got ready to think about going around it, it ran on across the road, 1/2 a mile from her house. So when she goes on up to her house, I come and see her, and then she said, well, this has been going on for like 10 years. I've been seeing eyes shine, seeing their shadows walk across my yard. So it ends up she has a habituation at her home for a 10-year period. She, about 3 years ago, went to her neighbors, and some are relatives in Kentucky. So a lot of families that live in 4 or 5 houses, together. They live where they was born and raised, where they grew up. And she said, I'm going to tell y'all something. You're going to think I'm crazy, but I got to share it. I've been seeing these Bigfoot creatures, and all of those neighbors said, yeah, we've seen them too. We've been seeing them over around your dog pen. We've seen their eyes shine. We've had our dogs barking at it. So, I mean, this is just paradise. This is, I hit the jackpot on this story. But this lady's report has just been posted on our website, if I may, KentuckyBigfoot.com, www.Kentucky, spell out the word Kentucky, Bigfoot.com, and all these stories are there. But this lady's story, but anyway, I didn't mean to get off track. I got one witness whose wife told a second part of the story, so the story grew, and then her sister, who's never talked. She's never told for 10 years that she's had habituation, but somebody got a hold of her, somebody got her calmed down enough. She felt trustworthy. She told me, she said, if I didn't trust you, I wouldn't tell you this story. And she said, sir, I'm telling you what I saw, and it's exactly what I saw. I'll never forget before I left her house. I said, honey, how sure are you? Just before I leave, I quit recording you. How sure are you didn't see a bear? How sure are you it wasn't She said, I'm telling you with everything in me, I saw a baby Bigfoot, and I'll never call it nothing else. That's good for me. I'm satisfied. And so anyway, what an amazing story. And may I add one more thing?
Of course.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm afraid I'm talking too much. In the very spot, and this is what makes me love doing research in the Bigfoot world, in the very location, we didn't put it on the report, on the very road, at this very spot, and where she saw it cross, there's some markers, there's some, I got to watch what I'm saying, there's some, I can go back to the spot simply from the description because there's some things, there are some landmarks that make this spot now known to me and to Charlie Raymond, who I told him where it was. If you drive down there and look for this and this, that's the exact spot. This means something. Charlie got a call. Somebody read the report. Now remember, I didn't say what road. I didn't say what spot. I just said what county. So Charlie Raymond got a call recently from a man in Texas. And the man in Texas said, I found your website and was reading your reports in Ohio County, and I want to share a story with you. My sister works in named a local town. Guess what? It's the same town this woman worked in. And she was going home on such and such highway. Guess what? The same highway this woman that just gave me the baby Bigfoot story was driving on. He said, and there's a location, I got to almost let it slip. He said, there's a certain spot on this road where this and this you can see. And he said, my sister was going down and saw a large 7 to 8 foot Bigfoot cross the road. Guess what? In the exact same spot, in the same location, identical to the same spot, and about 3 years apart. So, those things, right? I mean, either it's coincidence, and if you believe that's a coincidence, we need to all go buy a Powerball ticket as soon as this show's over. And that just goes, and I find that so much in my research. I speak to one man, and he saw something, then later on, maybe a year later, I talk to somebody, I was in such and such an area, and it confirms itself over and over, and we learn that there's places where they travel more or they're seen more. So anyway, that's my latest, greatest story of the baby Bigfoot. The woman felt sorry for it, looked it in the eyes at 12 feet, and then a witness calls from Texas who used to live in this county and wanted to tell us about his sister having a sighting, and we like to fell out of our chair when he named the road and the exact location. And like, you can go to the report. It does not say on our report. Nobody knows. And the man saw the same thing. You know what? There's a Bigfoot in that area using that path to cross that road.
Wow.
Definitely.
I'll shut up for a minute and take a breath. I'm sorry. Can you tell I get excited? I get wound up about this.
That's all right.
Well, we're glad you do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you. I'm adamant about it. I believe in it 100%. I try to tell people, and I'll go ahead and just tell this to you and your audience. In all the experience I've had, I was so amazed when I was talking to Lori that, she's had sightings. I myself have never seen one. I'm living for the reason I'm into this research. I'm living for the day to see one. That's my ultimate goal, is to see one. I guess I should say my ultimate goal is to prove they exist. But number two would be to see one. But I have found their footprints. I have found their hair and scat. KBRO has sent off hair and scat. They come back unknown hominid or unknown species. I have seen tree structures. Even on my hunting property, I have a 100-acre hunting lease here in Kentucky, and I had a picture I sent you of an eye shine. I see it going across the screen on the computer. There's some deer eating at a deer feed I've set out, and in the background I got a picture of some eye shine, 7 foot 2 inches off the ground. We went back and estimated large glowing eyes of a different color than the deer and the raccoon that are in the picture. And I don't want to get off track. This picture was taken up by the BFRO, and one of their photo analysts looked into it and could not describe it as being any other creature or anything else. And then I got an interesting call from a man who worked at a police crime lab, and he happened to believe in Bigfoot. And he asked if he could have a copy of the original off the trail cam. I sent it to him. I sent it to her. And she started working on it with equipment that cost $25,000. And she dissected that film, and I will not even act like I know all that technology, but she went through color modes and pixelated and changed backgrounds and everything. And she contacted me back and said, I never really believed in Bigfoot before, but your picture has really caused me to lean towards a Bigfoot, because this is a set of eyes on a tall, upright creature. I've almost got it to where I could make out a form and their shoulders and arms, and this is something standing in those woods looking at these deer and these raccoon. So anyway, that's on my hunting property. I found their tree structures. I've got pictures of eye shine. I found on that same property a teepee. It looks just like an Indian teepee, sticks stacked up, different sizes, 20-foot lengths, and when you could walk inside of them just like a teepee. Now, this is a private, locked-off, gated property, and it's 3 miles in by gravel road, no other way into this property, and we have the lock and key to this property. And it wasn't there one deer season, and it was there the next deer season. And so anyway, I've had all those experiences. I've heard their screams and whistles and howls, as he said in my bio sheet. And my greatest experience of getting close to one was just summer before last. I was sitting in a 650-acre tract of woods, uncut timber. I was the only person there. There's not a home within probably 2 or 3 miles in any direction. And I was sitting at night. I'd been there a couple hours, and sitting there, and that's what Bigfooting is. I want to say this: the Bigfoot Finding Bigfoot show. That's wonderful. It's awesome. That's not how you Bigfoot, and that's not how those people Bigfoot. By the way, that's for TV. They do it for TV. They reluctantly did it. I remember. I'm not a spokesman for BFRO, so I don't want to stay on this long. But when they were contemplating doing the show, and Animal Planet was offering them a contract, their biggest debate was whether to do it or not, because they had to go in carrying these cameras and these lights, and that's not how you Bigfoot. Bigfoot is, many people don't stay in it because it's really boring. But those people did it. I'm glad they did it. They took the job. Listen, that's not how Matt, Bobo, and Cliff, and that's not how they Bigfoot. But they do it for TV, and it became the #1 rated show for 5 years in a row. They would not do a show. No TV show would be successful of a Bigfooter doing his job the right way. Imagine watching an hour of a dark TV screen with somebody sitting under a tree whispering if they talked at all. The show would not be #1. But back to my story. I had sat there for 2 hours. I just want somebody to know I didn't have 3 cameramen and I didn't have lights with me. And I sat in there with my audio recording equipment going and sitting there in the silence and had heard nothing. And all of a sudden, this large tree right behind me, I thought it was falling on me from the sound. And it just goes and shakes the ground and falls. And I mean, my heart skips a beat and I start praying, you know. And I hear this thing go running through the woods, and you can hear, it's just amazing when you hear the thump, 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 2-footed, loud, it was heavy, and it's crashing these limbs, and it takes off till it runs up over the hill. And I get up immediately and go the other direction to my truck and leave, my heart up in my throat. And so I've had all these experiences, but I've never seen one. But I like to cap this story off with this. What makes me believe the most is not any of those things I've just mentioned to you, but it's the witnesses. The witnesses I have spoke to. Again, I'm a people person. And when you weed out the liars, when you weed out the people who misidentified what they saw, when you get the 6'3" Bubba, I'm in Kentucky, y'all, there are Bubbas. Did you know that? I'm talking to a 6'3" guy, weighs almost 285, 95 pounds. He looks like a man mountain. He looks like one of these wrestlers on professional. He's got a neck big around the top of my leg. And here in Kentucky, there's one thing you know, and I'm a minister, but look, don't come hunting on my deer property. Don't come into my deer. I've got deer plots. I've been feeding these deer since 2007. We've got some trophy bucks, you know, and you know, if you come on my deer property, I'm going to really be stern until you get off my property. These Bubbas down here shoot you. They're going to fight over their property. They'll fight anybody. They'll fight a bear. So you got to get that in your mind. I spoke to Bubba, 6'3", not afraid of nothing, fight a chainsaw. And he had a Bigfoot sighting. And Bubba stands there and puts his big old finger in your face and said, "Mister, I'm going to tell you a story, and you better not laugh." You know what? I'm not going to laugh. And he says, you know, he sees this 7-foot-tall, 400-pound creature comes while he's in a deer stand, and it's crashing through the woods and looks at him, and Bubba just about wets himself. And this thing walks off, and Bubba's sitting there with a 30-06 and said, "I felt like it was a pea shooter. There wasn't no sense using it." And Bubba tells me, "I've come out of those woods, and I'll never go back to my hunting spot." Listen, people, he saw something. That man would fight 10 men for his hunting spot. He would take his gun after anything that was a bear or anything. He was frozen in terror and gave up his hunting spot. And I go by people. When people are telling you the truth, you can stake on it. And Bubba saw a Bigfoot. And then I love this, little old Pentecostal Kentucky women, little old woman, grandma. As I said earlier, she don't even believe, she won't go to a movie. She's afraid she's going to go to hell for seeing a movie or drinking coffee. I'm being facetious. But, you know, I mean, a real sincere, she's not going to tell you a lie. She thinks saying a curse word's going to send her to hell. And she says, "Mister, I'll just tell you what I saw. God be my witness. That thing was 7 foot tall and was walking across my yard and looked like a big old gorilla with a man's face." Listen, she saw that. And I believe her. The witnesses are why I believe in Bigfoot. And I've, like I say, from all sides, you know, rich people, poor people, very educated people, some not quite so educated, and American Indians that can barely speak in English. When I was out on the Indian reservations preaching, had to use an interpreter. I spoke to Indians that didn't even know the English language, but when they would speak to an interpreter, and they all began telling you about a 7-foot-tall, hair-covered creature from Oklahoma to New York, I'm a believer 100%, even if I never see one. People are seeing something. And one last point I always like to make, if there's not a Bigfoot, some scientist or some team of doctors needs to do a study on this mass hallucination that's taking place in every state in the United States except Hawaii and in many foreign countries. That's an amazing, somebody could write a book, because somebody could win an award for that. Mm-hmm. Y'all got me preaching now, I'm preaching.
Most of the people in this room are dealing with a mass hallucination within ourselves, so I'd say you'd have a problem.
Exactly.
I'm pure alone. I've had 5 sightings. I'm crazy as they all could be.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Chugging the Kool-Aid.
Maybe we should take an intermission. What do you think?
Yeah, we don't want Don to lose his voice. I think that would ruin the whole show.
Yeah.
Be the first time in 43 years I lost it, but let's go. Take a break.
I just want to say, Don, that you are awesome. Oh, my gosh, you're the most awesome guest. I could just listen to you for hours.
Yeah,
I hope you don't mind talking, because we don't mind listening. You're awesome.
As long as I don't talk too much.
No, not at all. Don't worry about that on Night Callers. Just don't worry about that in our chat. Everyone in our chat really loved you. They keep repeating that you're a great guest, and they don't mind that you're taking us to church. Their words.
Oh, won't hurt none of it.
We'll just be sure to tell them we will not pass the offering pan.
But when we get back from the intermission, we're going to talk about your the tapes that you sent to Lori.
The recording.
Okay, yeah.
I just wanted to say that we really want to get to everything that you've prepared. So just go at it. When you get back, we're going to do the recording stuff, because everyone loves audio. So
I hope I can remember what all I sent you. You'll just have to probably prompt me a little bit, but let's talk. Once I hear it, I can tell you what it is for sure.
Okay.
All right.
Well, we're going to intermission now, and this first song is a oldie but a goodie, and I have not heard it since I was 14 years old. So Lauren will go, "What is this?" But it's an old favorite of mine. So anyway, here we go, everyone. Oh yeah, here she goes. Oh Lord.
You are listening to Night Callers Bigfoot Radio.
Putting your
Kentucky researcher Dawn Neal.
Okay. We are back from break. You're listening to Night Callers Bigfoot Radio, and our guest tonight is Dawn Neal from Kentucky. Dawn, are you back with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Hey. I know we didn't introduce ourselves at the very beginning, but you've talked to me. My name's Laurie, and the gentleman that's been speaking is Brad, and the young lady that you've been talking to is Lauren.
Hello.
And Bill is here, too. He just hasn't spoke up yet. Say hello, Bill.
Oh. He may be the most wise one of all.
Maybe.
We could talk about that.
Well, anyway, Dawn, we have, I believe, 4 recordings. One is the Kentucky Howl, the Kentucky Yell, Kentucky Vocals, 4/10/2010, and the Ohio County, 12/30/2013.
Okay.
Which one would you like us to play, and can you give a little description before we play it?
Well, I hope that the Ohio County Howl, is that what you said, the third one's marked? And
yes.
Forgive me for my bad memory, but I have half-timers, I tell people. I can't remember something. Well, and it might be interesting to hear this twice. I don't know how you're set up, and that's possible because sometimes it takes twice to hear it. But we all make mistakes. I don't care what you do and how much you know. And one thing that always gets me, people talking they're professional researchers, but we're not professional. Some of us may have done it, or some may have done it longer than others and know a little more, but we're no professional. We're chasing a creature that most people think is a fantasy. And every week we learn something more and wish we hadn't done the week before. But one thing we try to tell people when we're out is we're trying to gain audio evidence and video evidence. But on the audio, when I went to the BFRO's first expedition, they told us this: if we're out tonight, you newbies, they was calling us newbies, and you get out here and you're not expecting to hear this long scream, please don't say, oh my God, or don't say, did you hear that? Yes, we all heard that. That's what we're out there for. And that stuck in my mind. And you know what? Almost every expedition I've ever been on, when something finally does scream, you finally hear a sound, I don't care who's in the group, somebody goes, did you hear that? Oh my God, don't talk over your recording.
Classic word. Yeah.
Right. Don't talk over your recording. Well, even we do. So Charlie Raymond, and he'll kill me for telling this, but he had a small group of people, and they were in a known Bigfoot habituation area. And they had been out and walking and at pitch black night, and they really got turned around and thought for a moment they were lost. They didn't know their way back. They came into a small clearing, and in their mind, they were a long way from where they had parked their vehicles, and they looked up on a hill quite a distance away, and they saw the reflection of tail lights. And Charlie told the group he was with, look, that's some other people out here, and, it's got to be Bigfooters, because this is a well-known Bigfoot area. It would not have been unusual to find and walk up on other Bigfooters here, and because it's not our private property. So the people he's with said, well, let's turn around and go back the other way. And about that time, they start hearing these screams. And so these other people were professional Bigfooters, too, in their own right. And they keep talking, and the woman's voice, you can hear her say, yeah, that's somebody else making a Bigfoot call. That's somebody screaming. Little did they know that the very vehicle lights they were seeing, they had made a big circle, and they were back in a field across from where they entered the woods, and they were seeing their own vehicle taillights. And the scream was not another Bigfooter. It was an actual Bigfoot creature. It screams 3 times. You can hear it in the background. They're still talking. She tells her husband, go ahead and make a, holler back. Let them know we're here. In other words, go ahead and make a yell. And finally, towards the end of it, Charlie says, wait a minute. That may not be. And then coyotes start in, which is a very normal thing that happens. I don't know if you didn't know that, but I can tell you that 8 times out of 10, if I hear a Bigfoot yell, coyotes will join in or be in there somewhere. Many times I get excited hearing coyotes yell first, because a Bigfoot sometimes will chime in with them. Mm-hmm. So anyway, this recording, you'll hear them talking. You're hearing professional people that feel like they are lost, and they go to talking, and in the background you can try your best to make out these screams. Now, after 3 screams, you will hear coyotes, and it's distinct, and you can tell a coyote's yell. But play it once may be good. If you play it twice, it sinks into what's going on. And they would never do this. 100 more times, they would never step on the recording. But they thought they were lost. They thought they saw another vehicle. I mean, every reason, kind of makes it understandable why they did this. But interesting to listen to, and try to hear past the talking at first, and you'll hear this scream.
Is this the Ohio County?
It should be the Ohio County. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, now let me tell you what that was. That's even better than a whole. That's the screams, and Charlie had a man who what do you call him, a linguist, works with sounds, and he took out the voices and singled the track out to just the screams. So good. I didn't even know I sent you that. That's the screams. Yeah, please. Now, they're talking, they hear that 3 times. There was 3, and on that recording, there's only 2. Sorry about that. And then the coyotes, and I like to get the coyotes because then you can tell that it's absolutely a different yell. About 30 minutes after that event, I drove up to the campsite at 11:30 at night. They were excited and telling me about it, and I took out my thermal camera. I've got one of those FLIR thermal cameras, and we took off across the field in the direction of the howl, and we were into the edge of the woods and got surrounded by coyotes. And when they started howling, they couldn't have been no more than 30 or 40 yards all around us in the woods, and it was a pretty scary experience. And those coyotes usually do not do that. They usually run away from you. They won't get that close. But we were surrounded by coyotes, and they went to yelling, and I'll tell you, it makes your blood run cold just for a moment. But that was one of our best recordings here of recently. I think that's been in the last year or two. I don't know if it has a date. But that's in a Bigfoot habituation area where Bigfoot have been seen and where a local man has pictures of a possible Bigfoot on his trail cam, and many footprints have been found. So that increases the odds of what we think we're hearing. So it's a pretty wild scream. Now, you got to understand, it's a lot louder than that, and you're standing in the woods at night and hear that, you'll really go to thinking, what am I doing here?
Well, this recording has 2013 on it.
Okay, so 2 years ago.
2013.
That's it. It was in December, exactly.
Wow.
Now, you had one that says, I believe, Kentucky Howls. I hope that's...
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is a great story. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Tell the story.
This is a great story. This was a team of paranormal researchers. This is a group, a man near Bowling Green, Kentucky. I had a paranormal ghost hunters group, and they went to this known haunted house that people in the area said was haunted, had the windows knocked out, and they set up audio equipment all through the house. And one of the pieces of audio equipment was on a old kitchen sink or counter by a broken kitchen window that faced the backyard, which went into some deep forested areas. They were out front of the house. As a matter of fact, their night's about over. They're getting ready to go in and pick up the recorders and leave. At first, they don't even hear that this recorder in the back of the house at the broken kitchen window facing the woods is picking up these screams. And then you can hear them talking. I believe I sent you the recording with the talking, and you could hear them say, "Hey, what is that?" And somebody said, "That's not, that's a Bigfoot." And it's making these loud screams. And I may have sent you 2 copies. I'm sorry, I should have written all that down. But anyway, it's a famous Kentucky Howls. Again, it wasn't picked up by Bigfoot researchers. It was picked up, thank goodness, by a paranormal research group. And these sounds have been listened to by linguists, and I forget the proper term, people that can dissect this audio, and experts, and they say it's absolutely an unknown creature because of the vocal range and the longevity of it. And it's pretty interesting. And of all things, some ghost hunters picked it up.
Okay, and this is the Kentucky Howl, right?
I believe it would be the Kentucky Howls. That's what I think I would have titled that.
Okay, now this one is only 4 seconds long, so it's
okay. Well, then
one howl. Then there's
the other one is the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Let's play the Kentucky vocals. April 10th, 2010.
That's it. And the 4 second one's must be just a snippet that's been made clear so you can enhance it and hear it better.
Yeah,
so those are both the same thing.
Oh, okay. Okay.
They're from the same event, I'm trying to say.
Well, let's play this original first and see.
Okay, please.
That was a classic siren call.
Isn't that amazing? And the different octaves it reaches.
Amazing. Yes. Wow, that is the best siren call I've ever heard recorded.
Yes,
I love it.
Yes.
I love it. Can I play it one more time, please?
Oh, I wish you would. Listen how it goes the octaves, almost in a song.
I'm not mistaken, Dawn, there's two there.
It has been surmised that there's possibly two, and some people, like I said, I can't explain all that, so I hate to speak of something I can't explain. But one person who dissected these audios said that believed it was a female screaming, and then a smaller one joins in. But that's they're supposing. But wow, isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Yes,
that is a very good recording. Very good. Wow. Wow.
And you can hear the Bigfoot, the paranormal people coming to the house, and one of them says, "What is that?" The other one says, "That may be a Bigfoot," or something to that effect. So, they're not Bigfooters. They weren't looking for that, but they captured some of the greatest audio, I think, I've ever heard of that was a great siren, you call her Hal. That's amazing.
Hal. Also, you were mentioning how it almost has a musical tone. I have recorded things down here, howls that were musical sounding, and even some of our coyotes will sound musical sounding. And
isn't that something?
I don't know if it's just the area, but it's fascinating when you get something like that, because coyotes are supposed to sound a certain way, but sometimes they're a little more creative.
Yes.
And Sasquatch especially. I wish I had, and I guess I'm going to have to send it to you. I'm going to have to send you a recording that I did in November of 2002, I think. And I heard it. I wasn't living here. I was living in a county over. And I heard it that night, and I was recording. I faithfully recorded every single night from my bedroom window. And I got that recording, and I sent it off to be analyzed, and they could not tell me what it was.
Wow.
They said it had a fox-like quality, but it did not fall in the same wavelength as a fox.
Isn't that amazing?
But it was very high pitched, just like that, only it was more musical. And I will have
it almost sounds like it's going into a falsetto, a really high falsetto.
Yes, exactly.
That almost has a bit like yodelers do, where you can go in with a straight voice and then pop over into a falsetto. And go
exactly right. Which again is what removed it from being coyote. I believe the man that wrote a report on it took it away from being a coyote or anything with a smaller lung capacity, and it changes the octaves and the degree of breath it took. He got all technical about it. But an outstanding recording. Wow.
Outstanding. Now, this Kentucky Howl, I'm going to play it, and then I'm going to let you tell me a little about it, because I'm not sure if you remember which one this is. But let me play it.
I don't know. I think it is a snippet. Yeah, I think it is a snippet of what we just heard, but let's just hear it and see.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that if I'm not mistaken, well, that had a barking to it. I thought I'd seen a snippet of the other one, but that had a dog barking in the background. So that's different. And I'm going to
play this other one and see real quick if maybe that's a snippet. Know which one that is.
Yeah, that was the Kentucky Howl, and then the little 4-second was just a snippet of the first howl. That wasn't a dog I was hearing. So that's what that was. Just I sent a 4-second, and then I sent the full length version.
Okay. Wow. And I still, and I know our listeners have heard this story before, but before I ever believed in Bigfoot or anything, I was fishing on a lake in the middle of the morning on a pontoon boat, and I heard a howl just like that. Only after the howl, it went into a roar. And I knew of nothing that could howl and roar.
Exactly.
And I was absolutely I just thought whatever it was going to come and get us. I couldn't get back to that boat ramp fast enough.
Isn't it amazing?
Isn't it amazing? Go very fast. And it was funny, too, because I had no clue it was a Bigfoot. I never even put that together.
Exactly.
I just knew It made every hair on my body stand up, and I was absolutely terrified. And it was time to go. Wasn't catching anything anyway. So, time to go.
I love when, and there's a lot of people, we've talked this mingle about the 1 in every 10 or 1 in every 20 witnesses. A lot of people don't know that they have been a witness to a Bigfoot incident. They just, something unexplainable. But just like you mentioned, I've had people say, no, I don't believe in Bigfoot, but now I've heard these amazing howling sounds. It sounds like something's wrong with the coyote, or some people say, I don't think there's wolves in Kentucky, but I sure thought I heard one. And I and myself think, they've heard of Bigfoot and they don't even realize it. And I love this part. One thing Bigfoot does that's different than any other creature, and it's the very thing that made my wife, who was a real skeptic, become a believer, is the wood knocks. When they knock, for whatever reason, we surmise, KBRO, we think that it's a location. They're saying, like, I'm over here, where are you? And they apparently pick up wood and knock on trees. They do loud wood knocks, and that's exactly what it sounds like. And my wife was a skeptic, and 3 years ago, one night about 11 o'clock, I said, I'm going to go squatching. Couldn't find anybody to go with me, and that doesn't stop me. I still go. And my wife said, look, I'm scared for you to be out by yourself, you crazy thing. I'm going to go with you and sit in the car and sit in the truck, and, you're not going to be too long. So I was glad she was going for the company, but I hated to be rushed because I like to go out there and I forget the time, So we go out there, and I park my truck, and I get out with this. I got my Louisville Slugger, ball bat, and I go off about 50 yards from the truck, and I'm waiting about 30 minutes, and so I make a wood knock. And I just would, anybody that's listening to your audience, and anybody interested in doing any Bigfooting, before I do any howls or screams or anything, wood knock, to me, is the greatest thing to do to elicit a response, and is also the safer thing to do, because you may not can howl and fool them, but a wood knock is a wood knock. And if you get a wood knock, to me, believe it or not, we just heard those great recordings, is as good, if not better, than a howl. Because many things can howl and maybe confuse somebody, but no other creature in the woods that I know of picks up a piece of wood and slams it on the side of a tree. So we were out there, and think about that. And I hit this tree 3 knocks, and much to my surprise, you do it, but you're still surprised every time. And I cannot tell you how secluded this area was, how remote it was. I guarantee the closest house is 5 miles. And there are places like that here in Kentucky. We're still a very rural state. Our biggest city, Louisville, is still small in comparison to other states' biggest cities. So we're very rural. And I got 3 knocks back. And so I looked up to the truck in the dark. I can barely see the outline of my truck. And I'm thinking, I wish she had the window down. When I left her, she had the windows up and was sitting in the truck. And so I wait about 10 minutes, and I hit again. And this thing answers my 3 knocks, and it's closer. I can tell it's coming. Now, I'm 5'9", weigh 280 pounds. I'm a fairly huge guy. And I like to think that I can do some home run knocks. When I swing that bat on that tree, I make some pretty good knocks. This thing was, I was hitting with the ball bat. It sounded like it was hit with a fence post. And it was wham, wham, wham. So by then, I can't stand it. I've got to go up there and tell my wife, roll this window down. You're missing this. And when I get to the truck, she's got the window down, and my little red light, I've turned on my red light just for a moment, and her eyes are big around quarters, and she said, are you hearing that? And I said, yes, I'm wondering if you're hearing it. And she said, nothing else in the woods can be doing it. And right then, not 50 yards in the woods from us, I mean, it sounded like a telephone pole hitting anyway, pow, pow. Now listen, it wasn't a man, it wasn't no lights, there was nobody walking through those woods. You'd have to know the area. Copperhead, water moccasin infested swamps and stripper mines, and no lights were seen. And this thing goes pow, pow, pow. And my wife became a believer. And to this day, she's a firm believer in Bigfoot, because what else can pick up a piece of wood? Not a deer, not a bear, they don't pick up wood and go banging on trees, and not like that. So wood knocks are the greatest evidence of all. But that's amazing to go out in the woods and hear a howl, I love it when it pays off,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
well,
something doesn't happen.
Some other things to share with us. So let's see what else you got on your fabulous little desk there to share with.
Well, I would like to say this, that I want to brag on Kentucky. I love my state. I love where I am, And, of course, for many years it was known that Washington and California, those are the big guys. That's the big league in Bigfoot sightings, and they surpass everybody else. There's no comparison. But when you do a look on a BFRO website, I like to use them. They're the big boys. They'll go all over the world. And Kentucky ranks somewhere, I don't know, 7th or 8th in sightings, so they're not in that list. Now, if you take, and I did this, I meticulously went through and got all the reports in every county in Kentucky. We have 120 counties in the state of Kentucky, and we have Bigfoot reports from 98 of those 120 counties. And I believe the Bigfoot reports are in the other counties, but you believe this or not, we still have counties in far eastern Kentucky, back in the hills and the mountains, where the real hillbillies live, and there are still people today that still don't have computer access, believe that or not. And I love to go four-wheeler riding, and twice a year I go to Harlan County, Kentucky, if you've ever heard of Harlan County. And I go to Harlan, bloody Harlan, and go four-wheeler riding back up in those mountains, and there are people that's living back there that you think come out of 40 and 50 years ago. I've seen look like the Soggy Bottom Boys, and I love them. I say that with great respect. I love those people. So there's no telling the stories that we don't know about. But anyway, when we took all the stories from the BFRO, then I went to the KBRO and started comparing them to our reports, and any that were doubled or were already repeated, I could put them out. So when you take the reports from the BFRO and the reports from the KBRO and put those together, Kentucky winds up being like 4th in the nation in states with Bigfoot sightings when you carry those reports together. And so Kentucky is an outstanding state for Bigfooting. And anybody that wants to hear anything about it or read about Kentucky, go to KentuckyBigfoot.com, and we have every county listed where there's been a sighting, and we're working on the others. I had a lady speak to me recently and said that I had a Bigfoot sighting. I'll share with you, sir, if you're interested. Well, I'm always interested. And she is a nurse that works over in Hopkins County, Kentucky, a large city called Madisonville. That's large for us. The little town I'm calling you from, I live in Sacramento, Kentucky, population 300. We're just a little small communities down here. And so she was going to work in the wintertime, and I know the roads well, but there's a one way to get to her hospital. It's about an 18-mile drive, but there is a small little road that you can take a shortcut. Most people don't use it. It is blacktop, but it's almost a single-lane road. And she can take it and knock about 5 miles off of her trip. And this particular morning, she was running behind, so she thought, okay, I'm going to take this road. It's just dusky dawn. It's just getting daylight. And she's going along in a little car. She's got a little, seemed like she was a Plymouth Valiant. But it's one of those small cars that's all glass. It's a lot of glass. And she said, immediately I thought, why is there a bale of hay in the road in front of me? And I love reports when they're different. I love the different, breaks the monotony. She says, this bale of hay is in the road, and I start slowing down, and as I get closer, I see that it's not a bale of hay, but it's breathing in and out. It's something hair-covered. It's laying in the road with its back to her, and it's looking away, and it's in a fetal position. She can tell it has its knees drew up to its chest, and its head is bowed over. She can just see a shoulder and back and see the heavy breath it's taking. She drives her car just in shock, and she slowed down. But I get this, she drives almost to where the bumper practically touches the thing. She then is at a stop. She's thinking, I'm surrounded by all glass. I'm in this little car. What is this thing? She thinks for a moment, can I go left or right and get around it? It was so big. Now, again, it was a one-lane highway, a little road, but it was so big she could not have room to go around the left or the right of it. It literally was in the center of the road and took up most of the road. We're talking about a massive creature. She's seen it breathing. She thought, maybe it's 2 animals or 3 together. It makes it look so big. And then her story, first of all, it's amazing. It's laying in the road in a fetal position. Well, I've never heard that before. So I love that I'm writing my notes down. And she says, all of a sudden, she said, this is the only way I can explain it. It rose up with its back still to me. She said it did not use its hands to reach down and touch the road like we would do and raise itself up. She said it literally just like with its back and muscle strength, it just rose up to its feet. And she said, I was amazed by that, even though I'm seeing this unbelievable thing. I'm amazed. She said, I thought, look at there. It didn't even lift itself up. It just stood up. She said it turned its head slightly, and she said, I thought, oh, God, I don't want to see its face. but it wouldn't because of the headlights. And she said, I could tell the lights were bothering it. By the way, lights bother Bigfoot. And she said it turned and walked sideways and away from her and walked straight off the road. And within 3 steps, it was over in the edge of the woods and gone. And so I loved her story, but I'm thinking, again, red flags. Why was it laying in a road in a fetal position on a blacktop road and it raising up without using its arms? You know, that's almost like a ghost apparition. I mean, just, you know, it didn't use its arms. It just raised up to a stand-up position, over 7 foot tall. So I get a hold of Charlie Raymond and so I've got this great story, but there's a few things here and throws me off. And I told him, he said, Don, we better search into this. You know, we're trying to be careful. We don't doubt the lady. We appreciate her sharing. Would you know that I started doing research and found all kinds of older stories of people driving up upon Bigfoots? Maybe not some of the more well-known stories, but I found, I think, 8 or 10 stories of people driving up upon a Bigfoot creature laying in the road or on one side of the road or on the side of a road in a fetal position. So that, you know, that confirmed that we could write about it. It was not unheard of. And then I found at least a dozen stories where people said that the Bigfoot was laying down or was in a low position and rose up without using its hands or arms. And just great muscles must be in their back and their sides, their abs must be unbelievable, and just rose up. From a lying position to standing up, just using they just, you know, bend at the waist and stood up without using their hands. Then I found some video that people claim to be Bigfoot. I'm thinking of the yellow top Bigfoot, and what they specialize on and focus on is that it's sitting by a tree and it goes to an upright standing position and never uses its arms or hands. So anyway, we got that report confirmed and it became one of our reports. It's on our website now. And this nurse lady said that all the years she's still nursing and going to the same job, she'll never drive that road ever again.
You know, I've heard this story, or one like it, Don.
Wow.
I'm not sure if it's this exact story, but one almost just like it.
Well, if you go to the KBRO website.
Or laying on the road in a fetal position.
Isn't that something? Yeah. Amazing. If you go to our website, if it is the story, see, we have an artist, Terry Thomas, that works for the KBRO. He's one of our investigators, an outstanding artist. And what we do at the KBRO that people seem to like about our website, I really brag on the KBRO, by the way, not just because I'm a researcher with them, but there's a reason I'm with them. And these guys are professional, and they're trying to do it right. And let me say this about them. They are honest. They are an honest group, and they mean well. And so we've got an artist, and when we speak to a witness, then we ask them if our sketch artist can call, and Terry will call them and get the first, information of what they describe. And he will draw it, and if he has to, he'll send it to them, fax them, email them, and they'll say, no, change the eye, and he does it until they say, that's it. And we post those pictures with our reports, and people seem to really love that. And another thing we've started doing, it's a little harder to do because people will share your story, but they don't want to be on video. But on the KBRO site, we are one of the few groups now that we get our witnesses to turn in a report, and if they allow us, we videotape their report. We videotape them telling their story, and you can see the actual witness sharing their story. And people really like that. We got a lot of comments about it. So we're doing our best to keep an exciting website, and the reason why more people come there, then more people are willing to tell you their experiences.
Mm-hmm. What else?
I had to take a drink.
I bet you did. We have like 29 minutes left.
Okay. Well, let me tell you another thing. I was recently at my local gas station here in my little country town. We've got a gas station, a post office, a little Mayberry RFD, and I love it, by the way. I'm never complaining. I love my life. And I was pumping gas, and I've been doing this I've lived here at this location for 15 years, and so I'm pretty founded in the community, and people know me. And the little young lady pumping the gas says, Brother Neal, I've been told you're one of those Bigfoot researchers. And I said, yes, ma'am, I know you think I'm crazy, but I sure do that. She said, I want to tell you a story my grandfather told me. She said, I'd like to relate it to you. And I said, well, share the story. And her grandfather was, I knew him, by the way. If I knew he had saw Bigfoot, I would have spoke to him before he died. He died recently. But an honest and very honest and truthful man. And he took his boat at a point of a local river down here. I know exactly the spot, not 6 miles from where I'm speaking to you now. And he crossed a little small river Most people would call it a creek. It was a small river, and got to the other bank to fish. And he got on the bank and set up his equipment, and he's fishing out in this bigger river that adjoins to it. And he keeps hearing a rustling in the grass, and he thinks, well, it's a rabbit or something. You know, these guys hunted all their life. They're used to the woods. And he said it just kept going till finally he turned and looked, maybe 20 minutes later, and he sees this 7-foot-tall, hair-covered creature with large, glowing eyes peeking at him from behind a tree not 30 yards away. And the man said, I knew it. I'm too old to run, and I've got to run to the boat and try to cross this thing. He said, I'm stuck. I mean, I'm there. There's nowhere to go. I mean, he just faced reality. And he said, he just, what do I do? What do I do? And he said, the only thing that kept him calm was that the creature was not advancing towards him, but it was looking around that tree with such curiosity. And he said, I believe the thing was as scared of me as I was of it, believe it or not. And he noticed then that after he looked at it for several minutes and would watch it peek around the tree, and he would lean his head over and look at it, and he would hide. And then the next time it stuck its head out, it had moved. And the guy said, how was it so big and moved so stealthily? But it would be maybe 10 yards farther away, peeking out from another tree. But he never saw it move from tree to tree. And it's going down this bank of the river. It's got some trees, and it goes farther and farther and keeps looking almost like a game. And when it was about 70 yards away, only then did it stand up completely. And that's when he realized it was some 7 foot tall, the best he could ascertain, and took off running away from him, much to his pleasant surprise. So the grandfather told the granddaughter this story, told all of his family, until the day he died, which was not long ago. And she said when he was dying, there, not maybe the moment, but while he was dying, they asked him again, Papa, how true is that story? He said, I'm telling you that story is true. It happened to me. So, wow. So then the granddaughter was telling me that he lived in a trailer in a little town. She named it, again, a little bit closer to me, maybe 2 miles from his sighting at the river. And she said she was out one night. Now, kids down here in Kentucky in these little towns, they don't have a lot to do. We don't have a local malls. And so they walk around town. It's nothing for them at midnight. They're just walking around town, 14, 15-year-olds. They'll walk around town, see their friends, at the Coke machine, at the gas station. And that's serious. I'm serious about that. Wouldn't trade it for the world. And one night, late at night, she got done with her friends, and she walked to her papa. The same man had a sighting. She walks to his trailer 2 miles from where he had his sighting. You got to get this in your mind. She walks around the trailer. It's pitch black at night. She's going to go to the back door and go in the little back porch and go into the trailer. And she walks face first into something. She said, I just walked right into this. She said, it felt like walking into a fur coat. She said, and I look up. It's too dark to see, but I see this silhouette. I'm looking straight up. She said, and I'm talking to the girl. She's standing there looking me in the face. She said, I have to look up, and she looked straight up. So you're talking 7, 8 foot tall. She said, I could see shoulders. I couldn't see a face, but something was standing there, and I'd walked right into it. She said she thought that her grandma had hung the rug out on one of the clotheslines. Maybe she had run into that, even though she really didn't believe that because that's not where the clothesline was, but she was trying to figure it. And this thing turns and takes off running away from her and goes to making the most ungodly screams. And she said you could just feel it in your chest, and it takes off running and screams all the way till it hits the wood line and goes into the woods screaming. And then she was unfrozen from her fear and ran into the trailer. And, of course, her papa always believed her because he'd had his sighting. And the grandfather always wondered if the creature he saw 2 miles away at the bank of that river was that the creature that ended up in his backyard on this particular night. I mean, the odds are, but it was amazing to him. So that's a pretty great story with 2 witnesses that were relative to each other.
I just wonder if she smelled anything. I mean, because
no smell. Isn't that unusual?
You would think walking into it, she wouldn't be able to get the stench off her with a gallon of tomato sauce.
Exactly. Most all our reports, we have the stench and smell, and many reports, they smell nothing. I don't know.
Maybe that sense cut out on her. Maybe her nose protected itself and shut down.
Could be. I mean, very could be. Some people think that they're able to produce that smell when they feel threatened or endangered. They believe it's a defense mechanism. But then other people have, seen one and they didn't think it saw them, and they said, you smell the stench way before you see the creature. The old man, I can't remember if he mentioned, The report, again, is on the KBRO, and there's so many I lose track. But I don't think he smelled a smell. The lady that saw the baby Bigfoot did not smell a smell. But I have other people that knew 5 minutes before they saw something, they smelled this rank. I've heard garbage to dead skunk to sulfur. Sulfur's mentioned a lot. You know, I wonder, we're still learning. Every report, every week we're learning something. Nobody really knows, but it's interesting that we're learning about the creatures each time. So, you know, why do some have a smell? And I always tell people, the more I research, the more questions I end up with.
Yeah,
what's the
definitely.
what is the strangest report that you've ever heard of coming out of Kentucky? Or maybe not the strangest, but the most, the one that's really stayed with you when you read it. It just stayed with you.
Well, I've got so many. I love when there's multiple witnesses. That's always even better. One witness is great. When there's multiple witnesses, better. There was a team of coon hunters in Kentucky. People coon hunt a lot of big, interesting stories, Finding Bigfoot. Again, the TV show I like to mention. They've done 5 seasons of episodes. They've been to Kentucky twice. I went to both town hall meetings, to both their televised shows in Kentucky. And Kentucky's the only state in all their shows they've been to that while they were out hunting at night, they ran into a pack of people and got shot at. I said, yeah, leave it to Kentucky. But what they did, they were out squatching at night, and it was coon season. And one of the, I think it was Cliff or Bobo, said, I've never seen so many people out in the woods at night. But at Kentucky at nighttime, where they're coon hunting when it's coon season. So 5 or 6 or 7 guys get 10 or 12 dogs. And it's a nighttime party, and they're out, you know, coon hunting, and the dogs go, and you walk for miles. I coon hunt quite a bit, and you walk for miles and miles wherever your dogs end up taking you. And so there was one great story where the guys got their dogs out of the truck, and they had them on leash, and the dogs were very reluctant. Dogs that usually run off, and, you know, they call them runners. They'll take off going a mile before they'll stop and tree a coon. And these dogs were reluctant to get off the leash, had their tails between their legs, you know, and were acting funny. And of course, these guys want to coon hunt. They don't care about that. They're just being skittish. So they walk them over to the woods, maybe 400 yards, get into the deep woods, and they unleash the dogs. And some of the dogs run off and come right back, and the others stay there whimpering and whining. And these coon hunters, I mean, they don't believe in Bigfoot, and they just don't understand. And directly they hear this loud screaming roar, and when they shine their big lights, coon hunting lights, we call them weed lights or miner's lights here in Kentucky. They use literally a light that's affixed to a hard hat that like miners use in the underground mines, and it's a bright light. And they look and light up this tall creature standing off in the woods with big glowing eyes, big as golf balls, reflecting the light, looking back at them, that goes to making this scream. So the dogs take off running to the truck, and the men right behind them. And this thing is screaming and following through the woods. So the guys say that they would notice that when they run, they could hear it getting closer, and when they stop and all shine their lights, it would stop or back up. And the dogs are back at the truck already, and the guys are running, and they got their guns, and they make some shotgun shot blast, you know, but a shotgun's good at close range only, and it's powerful. And the guys are just scared to death. So this story, they tell me they're running a little bit, and they look back and shine their lights. And one guy says, don't take your light off of it. And the other guy says, I don't want to run backwards. I'm going to fall, and it'll get me. So these guys fight through the woods and through this 300 or 400 yard field to get to their truck. And this thing is, every time they turn and run, it gains on them. When they stop and turn their lights, it stops or backs up. They get to the truck, and their dogs are already in the truck. Some of the dogs had jumped in the truck and got in the dog boxes already to get away from it. And the guys slam the tailgate shut and leave out of there, and the thing's screaming. Just, they're scared to death. And these guys, I mean, they're scared to death. And they get out of there. So that's a pretty, you know, there's several witnesses. The dogs are scared. And this thing, they're usually not aggressive. I don't believe it was going to hurt them, but it wanted them out of there. But it chased this team of men out of there, and only when they shined their lights would it stop. So that's an amazing story. I think of another one. We got a call from a man who said, I need your help. And let me be totally honest, it was another Bigfoot research team that's in my area, and they called me and said, Don, do you want to go with us on this expedition, because I have a thermal camera, which makes me kind of popular in our area. I'm one of the few people that has a, I spent money like a crazy man. I spent the several $1,000s, and I've got a FLIR thermal camera, which is one of the greatest. I believe, I'm getting off track, I believe the next greatest evidence we find in the world of Bigfoot, I'm thinking, will be a thermal camera. Now, we already sung the Mike Green video, if you know what I'm talking about. Outstanding, where it comes through the woods and takes the candy bar off the stump. I mean, that's amazing. I don't know why people don't believe. Some people are not going to believe if one smacks them in the head. But that's amazing. And Bart Catino's got some great video recently in California of 3 Bigfoot walking in the woods. And there's some great thermals out there. Some I can't mention. I saw that are not even, you can't even find them on the internet. I have seen some thermal video that is amazing. There's a thermal video out of a team of researchers walking down the road, and they shine out into the woods because they're hearing sound and spot 2 Bigfoot crawling on their stomachs, just like soldiers in the Army. You ever see them get out and crawl when they're crawling to not be seen, and they put their arms forward and crawl? There's a video of that that's amazing, but it's not online. It's not posted. But anyway, back to the story. They said this guy wants us to come and help him get rid of a Bigfoot that's attacking him and attacking his home. And I said, now, wait a minute. And the guy's story is that he's a miner. He goes to work at nighttime, like a second shift, they call it. And when he come out of his home, this thing chases him, has chased him to his car. And when he's at home, it hits his trailer. It shakes his mobile home. It has put dents in his trailer. And the guy is terrified to where he's carrying his .357 Magnum pistol to and from his car and just scared. And he gets a hold of this team and says, I want you to come and get rid of it. So I go to laughing because, we're not Ghostbusters. We're not your local pest control. You don't get rid of a Bigfoot. We don't do that. But the guy, what brought him to the breaking point is that it chased him in his home one night, and he said it was at the front door, and he took his shotgun and shot a 12-gauge shotgun and shot through the front door of his home. And it ran off screaming. And I did not go on that report with those guys. I did speak to Charlie Raymond, and speaking of the lights, and Charlie said, look, just tell the guy the only thing he can do is put up lights all around his home. He can invest in security lights, motion sensor lights, and having lights around his home. The last I heard, and again, I didn't go speak to the man eyewitness, but I stayed in touch with that group, and the man did put up motion sensor lights. Matter of fact, he went overboard and put up a plethora of lights around his trailer, and the incident stopped. So that's pretty amazing. I mean, this thing was hitting his trailer and chasing him to his car, and and usually we don't hear of aggressive Bigfoot, but this man was scared, carrying a .357 Magnum to his car and back home every night, and ran from his vehicle to his house. He was that scared. So that's pretty wild.
Wow.
I'm thinking one last story. Last Halloween, as a matter of fact, I was invited to Owensboro to a local ghost hunting group. They do a walk you through the town. They have a ghost tour, and they want me to come and tell a story, that was kind of scary. And I had read an amazing report. A mother who was a waitress, she was a single mother. She had I'm trying to remember this, a 6-year-old girl and a 10-year-old boy. And so she had to go to work at night waitressing at a local restaurant, truck stop kind of place. She hired her 16-year-old niece to babysit the boy and girl so they wouldn't be at home by themselves. And she went on to work. And the children began hearing noises outside the home. And the mother confirmed later on that this was not unusual, that they had been hearing, that they didn't know it was Bigfoot, but they heard screams and howls and like somebody walking around the trailer and mobile home. So the 16-year-old girl, trying to be brave, she goes and looks out the front door and the back door when they're hearing these noises, and something goes to hit the door at times, and she opens the door and nothing's there. And the story goes on for like an hour or so, and they're getting pretty terrified and pretty scared. The mother doesn't have a phone, so they can't call the mother. And this is reality in Kentucky. There are homes that like that don't have phone lines. I pastor a church. I pastor a church out in the country. We don't have phone lines. They don't even have telephone lines run out to the church. I can't have a phone in it. We do have electricity, but we don't have phone lines. But the cell phones work, so we got a little bit of a signal. But anyway, some people might hear this and go, they didn't have a phone. Yeah, this is Kentucky. There are some people that don't have computers yet and phones in some parts of our state. But back to the story, and the 16-year-old girl said finally when they were looking outside, she had turned the porch light on, and they saw this tall, hair-covered, they couldn't guess a height, they're kids, a hair-covered creature, and it's walking around out in the woods, and they could see the eye glow from the porch light as it looks at the porch. And so here's what, to end the story, when they would look out, it would be hiding behind the tree or hiding behind a little shed and would look out. When the little boy would look out, the thing would come into view and would motion with its hand like, come here, come here. It was motioning for the young boy to come out. And so that scared him. And then the babysitter did see that happen. Then the last time, they closed all the curtains. They got into the room and stayed there just frightened until the mother came home. And the mother and the children moved out of the trailer, ended up leaving the trailer. But I thought it was amazing that the babysitter, 16-year-old, and the 10-year-old boy both said that it would motion. When he would look, it would motion with its hand like kind of like a come here motion. So that's kind of odd.
That is extremely odd. Have you ever heard any reports about language, hearing talking or mimicking?
Oh, yeah.
Talking?
Yes, many people, who first, again, I love when people don't believe in Bigfoot. I love those witnesses the best that weren't, they weren't looking for a Bigfoot. And so exactly. I have 2 or 3 stories in mind where people said that they thought they were alone hunting or thought they were alone in the woods camping, and they would hear this gibberish kind of talk. They think, and people amazing, your mind tries to, make sense of everything. So they thought, well, there's some Asian people here, or, there's somebody speaking in Spanish, even though it didn't sound quite like that. And then they would hear, a growl or a howl, or they would hear something walking in the woods, which would kind of makes it relate to a Bigfoot. But they would hear the language first. And I'm always interested in that. I also have, what was his name, Ron Moorhead, the Sierra Sounds. And I've listened to that through the years over and over. And I do believe that it's possible they have a language. The gentleman talking to us earlier, I believe they do have a language. He was kind of on that line. I believe they have their habits and they have their lifestyle. I don't know how they would relate, excuse my voice, from one state to another. But I do believe they talk. I believe they have a living habit. I believe they have a way to know each other, recognize each other. And I do believe that it's possible that they speak to each other.
How about you, Grass? Do you have any questions?
Well, you've talked about some of the natives you've talked to, like the ones that didn't have, they didn't speak English. You needed an interpreter or something.
Right.
Their kind of experience goes back centuries. And some of them doing trading with some of the Bigfoot, like up here. I'm up in Seattle. And some of them up here have said they actually do trading with them. And sometimes they...
I have read that.
For deer, blah, blah, blah. Have you ever run into something along those lines where they actually are in regular communication, very casual kind of things going on between the Bigfoot and the local Indians?
Well, first of all, speaking of Indians, I'd just like to throw in that something I found amazing. First of all, I never knew how many Indian tribes there were in America. You know how you watch cowboy movies and you think there's Apache, Comanche, and Cherokee. I've got actually in my church office, I have a map of the United States, and it has all the different Indian tribes that lived here. And it's so covered you almost can't separate the pinpoints where they are. Unbelievable, the amount of Indian tribes and the different types and that they were of different Indians and names that I'd never heard of. But I find it amazing that every American Indian tribe had a story about a Bigfoot-type creature. Every single American Indian tribe had a story. After a while, a person's got to quit going, well, that's coincidence, or I don't believe it. After a while, they're just not believing the sun shines. You know what I'm saying? I think anymore with some of the evidence, it's foolish not to believe in the possibility of some kind of unknown creature. But yes, there's a famous story here in Kentucky. There was a researcher, I don't know if I should say her name, but she wrote a book, and there was a lady lived in this home where her parents had lived, and apparently I think her parents had became habitualized to these Bigfoot, and they had names for them, that they had named them, the humans had named them, and that they would come to the home when they needed, or if there was times of blight or times of winter was bad, and the people would share food. So the girl grew up knowing these Bigfoots from when she was a child. She tells that it was not unusual for her to be playing in the yard and them to walk up on her, or for her to see them in the woods, and she was told by her parents not to fear them. And so the woman's story, this researcher, I've just got to think if I should mention her name, but she wrote a book about this woman's experiences. And this Kentucky woman would, sometimes they would knock on her back door. She tells a story once, and came, and in the language he tried to, you could pick up just a word now and then, and one of them was hurt and he needed medicine. And she shared some balm, some cream, and some bandages, and apparently this, I think she called the leader Fox, was just a name they gave her, and it may ring a bell.
I've heard this story. I have.
Right.
Mary Green and Janice Carter.
That's it. You're exactly right. Yeah, thank you. Okay. I didn't know whether to mention their names or not. They're not people I know, but I like it because it's an amazing story. And so she said they would come, and one time she wanted evidence. One of the researchers said, "You got to get us evidence." So when she was handing them something, maybe a cinnamon, or they liked the spice that she had, she grabbed a tuft of their hair and pulled it out. And I believe that hair was sent off and analyzed and came back an unknown species. It was nothing known, in the charts. So that's an amazing story. Now, recently, I believe last year, Charlie Raymond and a group of KBRO researchers, we went to an area here in Kentucky that people call for years Monkey Cave. And there were 2 caves, underground caves, and they're uncharted. Nobody's been through them. And there's water, fresh water runs out of them continually. And down in the middle of this deep crevice valley, you had to climb down to get into this, and then you're like in your own little valley. And there's an old log cabin house, like a one-room house down there from who knows how many years ago. We camped out there overnight. But if you went up the back ridge of the home, there was an elderly African-American woman, a black woman, that lived in that home. And she had passed away already, but what I would have given to meet her. But for years, the story was she lived at the end of a dead-end road and in a little shack of a house, bless her heart. But she got to throwing her scraps out. Now, we do that a lot in Kentucky. People down here, you get up to your supper, and you go out back, you throw your scraps out. And so that's why we also believe there's so many sightings. I believe the Kentucky expedition, what they call it, the Erickson Project happened because they found a farm where the lady was throwing her scraps out back, and these creatures had become accustomed. The Matilda video and the pancake eating video, if you've never seen or heard that, it's amazing. Wait until you see the baby Bigfoot with a big, they call it pumpkin head, large head, comes crawling out of the wood. It's on night vision, and he comes up and eats those pancakes and licks that syrup off of his fingers. It's amazing. That all happened from the lady that would take her food and throw it out, and they get used to eating scraps. Listen, that goes on all over Kentucky. It's something my parents did it. My grandparents did it, and we throw out scraps. So this elderly black lady, African-American lady, was throwing her scraps out and got to noticing these creatures coming and eating. So as poor as she was, she got to where she'd fix the food and for her child and her son, and she would set food out for them, and they would come up to her back porch and eat all the time. And she got to where she was friendly with them. They would try to utter words, I believe was in the story, I want to be careful on that, but they habitualized her home for food and came there often. The son who grew up, and she died, and the son's has a job and works just a normal everyday person, says that he saw them when he was a child. This was something that his mother did. So people do that. I think the amazing story of the lady that had them named, I think they talked, they had a language, she said, you could understand some words. And the last I heard in the book, the fox was dying, and they came and asked for her to come. And apparently the story goes, I can't verify, but the researchers went with her to this one that was dying, and he wanted to see them before he died. But I have heard stories of the talking, hearing the sound. There's a man named Stan Courtney, who is a great BFRO investigator in Illinois, and he specializes in sound. He's got these hearing equipment and these dishes that you can sit out and pick up noises from hundreds of yards away. He's got several recordings of a gibberish talking like back and forth in an area that's secluded. No one should have been in there. So there's something going on with language there. Something's going on with communication.
Well, Dawn, we are down to 3 minutes.
Well, let me share. May I share one last thing real quick?
Okay, you do it.
I'll be brief. People say, if there's Bigfoot, where's the bodies? If there's Bigfoot, where's the bodies? And I like to answer the story two ways. Number one, we believe they buried their dead. But number two, I have a friend out west who is a professional bear guide. He takes people, he owns a bear guide service. People pay him $3,000 and $4,000 and $5,000 to come to his place for 3 days, and he guarantees them a bear. Now understand that he got to guarantee a bear or he's out of business. He's been doing this for 26 years. He knows where every bear is. He knows them by their color, by their twisted ear. He's got to know where they are. You got to get that. He's got to know, because he doesn't make a living if he doesn't know. The man stays in the woods 6 out of 7 days a week. He lives in the woods. And he told me one time, he said, Don, I've been doing this 26 years. You know there's bears in America. I said, absolutely. He said, where I am, bears are in abundance. He said, do you know how many bears I've ever walked upon dead in the wood from natural causes? Not bears that somebody shot and I had to go track it, but do you know how many bears in 26 years I have ever found lying dead in the woods of natural causes? 0. None. And we know without a shadow of a doubt there's bears. They go somewhere. They go hide under leaves. They go to a cave. They will not die in the open. If they're dying of natural causes or old age, they go somewhere and where they're not found. If he cannot find a bear in 26 years, I'm not blown away and disbelieve in Bigfoot because we're not finding bodies.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your time. I've appreciated being here tonight.
Oh,
well, you know what?
You.
I have one quick sound that we missed. It's 3 seconds.
Okay.
I'll play it real quick.
Let's see what it is.
It's called Summer Shade Howl.
Yes, a young researcher named Chris Page. We've been on his property. He has an habituation site, and that is a recording he got. He's found footprints. He's seen movements. It's a real red-hot area that we go to. He's a great young man, a great young researcher in his own rights.
Well, Don, you have been a wonderful, fabulous guest. We are
I
going
hope
to have
so.
you back. I promise we want you back so
Definitely.
bad. Like next week, but we have somebody already. In fact,
Thank you. Thank
we've
you so
got
much.
Fred Canny from Virginia next week. So, everyone, we want to thank you all for coming in and listening tonight. Dawn, thank you for coming. And everyone, let's say goodnight. We're going to get out of here for the night. All right. Good night, everyone.
Dawn.
Thank you all so much.
All right, good night.
Good night, everybody. I don't know where everybody else went, but where is our outro? I can't. There it is. All right, here we go. Good night. See you next week.